What's your plan now then? Because last time you kind of let training slip a little bit.
Yeah. This time we were able to do some training. So obviously, while we were out of lockdown, I was training a place in London.
Hmm.
Um, but now I pretty much have nothing to do. The gyms are closed. Yesterday I went and trained in Birmingham. The UFC were shooting some training with Leon Edwards.
Oh, cool.
So we both train at the same place. So he's fighting Hamzat Chimaev in December. So right now,
Nice.
yeah. It's basically the Leon Edwards camp, and we're just going along for the ride.
I did not realize you trained with Leon Edwards. I didn't realize you trained with, well, really any MMA guys, to be honest.
I don't usually. So obviously, usually it's all jiu-jitsu. But during the whole lockdown, I basically switched all my training over to go into Fearless. So I've been training at Fearless on and off
Hmm.
for the last sort of 3 or 4 years, which is like the main wrestling gym that I go to in Birmingham. So if I want to train wrestling, I go to Canby in Fearless. And then if I'm here in London, it's basically wherever I was teaching was where I was training. Then I lost my job in the pandemic, so I didn't have that base in London to teach anywhere. So then it was like, okay, well, I have nowhere to train, so I'm going to have to go back to Birmingham. So I went to Birmingham to do all the training, and then I was just going to Fearless exclusively. So I was doing a whole lot of wrestling training. And then because I was wrestling so much, got involved with the MMA guys,
Of course.
started wrestling with them as well, wrestling with my guys, and now it's geared up because it's only, I think it's Leon fighting and Jake Hadley has got his Cage Warriors title shot
Hmm.
as well. So both of those guys are getting ready.
Nice. Are you like properly involved in the camp then?
Just training partners.
Hmm.
In sort of in the big boy side, there's obviously like a heavyweight sort of team and a lightweight team. Um, Maybe down the line I can, because I'm still fairly new to being in the MMA side, I could maybe help out with some sort of grappling coaching.
Hmm.
I was given some advice on yesterday in the training, but I wouldn't say like I'm a coach yet. But we'll see. We're working on that.
No, that's fair. I mean, do you have much interest in the MMA side of things?
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool. I just like teaching, regardless of who it is. And the thing with MMA is that it's a whole new dimension again. So I'd have to learn how to function jiu-jitsu in with strikes. Which I think if you look at people like Ryan Hall, I think it gives you some confidence in knowing that sort of modern jiu-jitsu can be used. It doesn't just have to be like wrestling.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Hall's an interesting one though, because I don't know anyone who's put together jiu-jitsu with MMA in a more unique way. Like most guys are MMA guys who can maybe wrestle a bit, or like well, they're either MMA guys who can wrestle a bit and use submissions, or they're
Mhm.
like Brian Ortega and Nate Diaz who have no takedowns, but everyone's afraid to take them down.
Yeah. Hmm.
Ryan Hall uses it in a way where it's like he doesn't even take people down. He just, whenever he's in punching range, he just drops to the floor
Hmm.
and uses his leg entanglements. I think it's fascinating.
Yeah. It's beautiful to watch, and the way like his leg entanglement on BJ Penn was impeccable, and to be able to pull that off in elite level grappling against someone that is also considered elite level grappler in BJ Penn is just unreal. And that is what jiu-jitsu should be used for, because I feel like it's gone past the point of just being able to be aggressive from bottom position after the takedown. So obviously you have people like Damian Maya, who is amazing at this, but a lot of the other jiu-jitsu guys, I don't think are being that effective because their wrestling isn't up to scratch. So then they've got to rely on playing bottom position, and then they get put in bad positions off the takedown. So then it's
Hmm.
real hard for you to work into situations. Whereas Ryan is basically pulling guard, but into a leg entanglement that no one else understands, confusing the shit out of everybody.
Yep.
By the time they've realized where they are, the leg's being torn off. So it's sort of like the perfect strategy.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, at the moment he's years ahead of people within his own field. I don't know anyone else who's in MMA who's anywhere near as experienced as him in that kind of aspect. I mean, what other leg lockers are there? I mean, Polaris was an interesting one, but he's very different.
Yeah. There isn't really with Polaris. It's more of a grip and just yank it off, as opposed to any finesse like with Ryan. The only other recent heel hook I saw was with Jack the Joker from Frontline.
Oh, Hermansen.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. That was interesting. And I remember Overeem was using them against Blades not that long ago. Like, he didn't get the heel hook, but
Yeah.
he was threatening it quite effectively.
Yeah, I think it could be used a hell of a lot more, because there's a lot of positions that people could be going into. Because I think you see, especially with the UFC fights, people get into like single leg X, or they get to a leg entanglement, and the commentators are like, "Oh, he's going for a leg lock," but if the guy knew the understanding of how to finish a heel hook, he'd finish the fight there and then.
Yeah, well, what I think is probably going to tend to happen, where jiu-jitsu has its fashions, like leg locks, and it goes down that route, it's going to take a few years before it can be adapted for MMA, because obviously it's not perfect. You're going to take a lot of punches if you just do a standard jiu-jitsu leg entry. But with some modifications, you can sort of adapt it quite effectively for MMA. And a few years on, I think it starts to come in. I think, leg locks have been a fashion for a few years. And I think they're coming into MMA they're going to start coming in more and more. And whatever comes in next to jiu-jitsu is going to be the next thing that comes into MMA.
Yeah, I agree completely.
I mean, kind of wonder what the next thing in jiu-jitsu is going to be. I hear people talking about cradle or about wrist locks or...
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's a big emphasis on takedowns at the moment. Everybody wants to learn how to wrestle for ADCC. I feel like I think there's going to be a big thing on fighting for the takedown, but I don't know in terms of like a ground position, because we've basically gone from deep half guard being really cool, berimbolos to 50-50 to leg locks. And now basically leg locks have revolutionized the sport by now becoming legal in IBJJF as well.
Yeah.
So they've like changed the rule system that's been set in stone for such a long time. So I don't really know what can come next, apart from maybe working on some takedowns.
Well, I don't know. I'd be interested to see. I mean, what do you think about... I'm really happy that IBJJF are able to modify the rules, because I really thought they were just stuck in their ways and were never going to change anything. I mean, what are your thoughts on the leg locks being brought in?
Oh, no, I love it. I think it makes for a much more established no-gi rule set, because everybody is training heel hooks anyway. Like, there's even blue belts that want me to teach them heel hooks. It's like, oh, IBJJF said I could do heel hooks, that put me in, coach. It's like, no, it's still brown and black. You've got a little while yet. But I feel like a lot of people diminish the reputation of the no-gi worlds or the no-gi Europeans because of it being IBJJF. Really, the big daddy of the tournaments is ADCC. And if you were to win the European trials for ADCC, that's where you're considered the best in Europe, as opposed to winning the no-gi European Championships in IBJJF. So now that heel hooks are introduced and reaping, now we have something that can actually qualify as being a legit tournament, because everyone's allowed to use the submissions that they would have been able to do. Like, I remember back, obviously the no-gi Europeans a couple of years ago, Oliver Tarza was fighting. And obviously Oliver's like a high-level submission-only grappler from the Danaher Death Squad. And he just got outpointed. He's used to sitting back on submissions and going for things. And the guy that he was fighting with racked up, like, I think it was like 8 points just sweeping and passing and moving around. And because I think a lot of times in IBJJF, those leg entanglements put you in a bad position. So then you get your guard pass from it or things like that.
Yes.
So it's really not a good situation to be put in when you're trying to use it in IBJJF. So then you basically either have to mold your game for that rule set or just never compete. And I think what we were seeing with dwindling numbers in the no-gi scene, less and less people were coming to compete in IBJJF no-gi tournaments. So I think the change had to be made to adapt to be able to bring everybody back into IBJJF.
Yeah, I see that, because leg locks are just super. They're just popular at the moment. Like I've done leg locks from quite early on, and it did frustrate me a little bit going into white belt competitions. I mean, I know I probably shouldn't have been doing. Well, I don't know. I've never hurt anyone. I've never been hurt doing leg locks, so it seems to be fine. But it did frustrate me quite a lot going into early competitions. And I get that we can do heel hooks, but even knee reaps, because I honestly don't think they're that dangerous.
Yeah, again, it's just whatever you spend your time on. Like jumping guard is probably a whole lot more dangerous than trying to put on a heel hook. But then it also comes down to the individual. Sometimes you just have crazy training partners, and if they put on a submission a little bit too hard, whether that's a arm bar or a heel hook, someone's going to get injured because that person's in the room, not necessarily because of the submission that they applied. But it's literally just because it's the unknown. A lot of people haven't trained it; they don't understand it, so they feel like if the heel passes their center line and the knee is reaped, the knee's going to explode.
I've
As
seen
though
so
something
many people
magic was
freak
going to
out
happen.
about that.
Yeah. So it would be nice just for the evolution of the sport. It's actually really nice because you see in other sports like judo, the rule sort of the positions get took away, and the sport gets sort of minimized to fit the rules. Whereas now we're able to evolve the game to fit into IBJJF rules now, and we can start heel hooking. And all it means is that I don't think it would necessarily change the prestige level. ADCC will always be the daddy of the tournaments, and I think what it will do now is just allow a lot more people to get experience competing under that rule set, and then it'll make it a lot easier for us when we do transition over to, say, the ADCC trials.
Yeah, and I'm always of the opinion that stuff tends to be more dangerous when you don't know it.
Yeah.
Which I think has been the big downfall of leg locks. People say they're dangerous, so they kind of do become dangerous because people start flailing around and freaking out in them rather than understanding the position properly. I think that'd be the same with any submission though. If I never trained a Kimura and someone puts me in it and I don't know where it's dangerous or not, I'm just going to end up hurting myself.
Yeah, exactly. This is where it's a good opportunity for everyone to start to teach that too. This opens up, people are basically forced to learn. So if you're a school owner, you can't neglect it anymore. Whereas a lot of people would just make the comparison to it being a dirty move and never teach it in their academy. Now it's part of the rule set. So if your guys are going to compete, they have to be prepared for it, at least to understand the defenses. Because this is the same thing like we were talking about earlier with trends. When the Berimbolo first came out, everybody was talking about old school jiu-jitsu versus new school, and I won't teach any of that in my academy. And then it becomes, then it's like, oh, now I need to teach the defenses because my guys are being Berimboloed in a competition. I was like, okay. So then eventually, for them to learn the defense, the students have to know how to do the Berimbolo. And then they all learn eventually. There's just this internal part of them that really doesn't want to learn it. Yeah. And it's the same thing with the heel hooks. I think there's going to be a bit of backlash from the old school instructors. People won't necessarily want to be teaching in their gym. But then it will give opportunity to more modern instructors. So maybe people can go to Lachlan Giles and John Danaher and learn online. Especially this whole year has basically been online. This has been the year of the instructional,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So people have had the opportunity to really learn leg locks if they wanted to. So I think by next year it should really adapt the game.
Yeah, and I'm always in favor of expanding rule sets rather than limiting them. I feel like judo, the way they limited the rule sets, it kind of takes away from the sport a bit, and I think it's almost like it's almost like a walking race rather than a running race. Do you know what I mean? Like you're just limiting the movement you can do, and it just makes the sport look a bit odd. Whereas the whole concept of jujitsu is the submission, and I hate it when they
Yeah,
start cutting out certain submissions because it kind of feels like it's diluting the sport.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Um, I guess rule sets. I mean, the whole reason I messaged you was about Polaris, and we've not got onto that yet. I guess rule
Yeah.
sets might be a good time to go onto that. Um, what do you think about it? Like you've done two now I don't even know what they're calling it, the Polaris team rule set. What are your thoughts?
Squads, I think. I think that's the
Squads.
official name.
Yeah.
Squads. No, this event was awesome. Well, like some of the most fun I've had competing in a long time. Um, yeah, the 5 minute matches force you to push the pace.
Hmm.
I think it's always going to be difficult to find a submission in that time against elite level competitors. Like if you go to a world championship, and you start looking at quarterfinals, semi-finals, and finals, you very rarely see a submission there either, and that's in a 10-minute match. So to try to see something within 5 is going to be difficult, but I think what you will see is a bit of fireworks and a lot of movement and guard passes, sweeps, attempts, back takes, all that jazz, which essentially we saw this weekend among a whole lot of submissions from the European team. But it was, yeah, it's a really fun event. It was a good opportunity for us to compete against some of the highest level guys in Europe, which basically classify as being some of the highest level guys in the world. Obviously, Tommy Langacker is a world finalist at black belt. Espen Mathisen is got third place at black belt. So these are guys that are reaching the podium, doing things that everybody else in the continent wants to do. So that it was just a perfect time for us to be able to compete alongside them.
Yeah, I mean, it did that. That's kind of what struck me is that there weren't a lot of submissions, especially in the Nogi one. How many submissions? Is like two over the night? I can't remember. That was a few weeks ago.
Yeah. The Nogi, the UK team won 1-0. So we got one submission. It was
Oh,
Tom
one.
Halpin's triangle choke. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what struck me is that there were not a lot of submissions, but it was quite exciting. I mean, it's not all about the submission. There was a lot of movement. I do kind of wonder what expanding the time limit on that would do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, it's going to force people to be a lot more reserved, but it all depends on the fighting style. So for me, I would probably fare a little bit better with a longer time limit
Hmm.
because in Nogi I have more of like a pressure passing style game. So right at the 4 minute, 5 minute mark is where the fatigue kicks in on the other person with me sort of putting my weight down and squashing, and that's when I get the guard pass. In 5 minutes, it's so hard to pass somebody's guard because they're still fresh, they're able to invert, they're able to wriggle their legs back inside. So positional wise, you're not going to see too many guard passes,
Hmm.
but you will see back takes and sweeps, which is what we saw here in the gi. It's sort of like similar if you go to Ashley Williams' match. If you'd have judged Ashley versus Tom Halpin in the first 5 minutes, Tom would have took the title. But you gave them another 5 minutes, and then Ashley passed, mounted, and locked up a triangle choke and solidified the victory. So I think, especially for Nogi, if the longer time limits favor the pressure passers, the top players, the ones that are slowly going to take the other person's soul, and the 5 minutes really favors the guard players, the leg lockers, and things like that. Because and I think I learned from that for this one. That's why you saw, like, I was sort of I was still attacking takedowns from standing positions in the ski squad, But as soon as we got to the floor, I was giving up top position, falling back, and giving up sweeps so I can play on bottom, because a lot of the situations you're benefited to play guard under Polaris rules.
Yeah, I do see that. So do you think if you made the time limits longer, do you think it'd be less exciting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people would be holding back for that last 2 minutes. Then it becomes the same sort of matches that we see in a world championship, especially in the gi. People will hold positions much more because you can't maintain that pace. Like the pace that I was going with Espen and Tommy, where it's back and forth, back and forth. I pass, he recovers, he passes, I recover. That match would never happen at a world championship. If you put 10 minutes on the clock, I'm not going balls to the wall like that. I'm going to try and drag them into 50-50, close my legs a little bit, hold down, get my breath back, then start working my sweep and taking a lot more time. The good thing with this is because there's no decision, so I don't need to worry about what it looks like. So if I get pinned in mount for 4 minutes and then I pop out and escape and lock up a knee bar, then I'm still going to win the fight. So I don't need to worry about being put in bad positions. So I can let things happen for the speed of things. You know what I mean? Like one example was Tommy was sort of mounted over my legs in like a smash pass, came around to side control, and then rather like in a typical situation, I'm going to be trying to turn away and get my legs back inside. But I went straight for a reversal back into side control myself, so rolled him completely over me.
Yeah, and that was a particularly exciting moment.
Yeah, but that works so well because in an IBJJF rule set, he'd have got 3 points and potentially an advantage for coming across to mount me. This one, it doesn't mean anything, and the judges aren't also looking at that to basically say, "Oh, Tommy almost got to side control. I'm getting him off me as soon as possible. Then I'm on top trying to work for me to find the submission again." So it is nice to not have the judges there, because then always when you've got the judge's decision, it's in the back of your mind of, am I doing enough to win? And if you are, then you can bring down the speed a little bit and make sure that you're just winning.
Stall for glory.
So this because it's human nature. People want to win and they're going to do what they need to win. So I think this was really nice that the only way to win is to submit the guy. So you have to go 100% for everything. And then that was the sort of the product that you saw. So I don't think I would change anything about it. The first time around in the no-gi, I thought there were a lot of people complaining that was only one submission, which is funny because you would expect to see more submissions in no-gi than you would in the gi.
Yes.
Yeah. But the thing is in no-gi, when you put that rule set in that you just don't need to get submitted and it's a draw, then when you get put in bad positions, it's, climb up, protect your neck. You can't really protect your neck so well when somebody's doing this and strangling you. It's a lot harder to hand fight in the gi as opposed to no-gi, where you've got to get a clean choke under a guy's jaw. Because you saw in the squads, like Mateusz Jaczynski, he took one of the guy's backs and he had like 2 minutes to work with a body triangle locked on. And the guy was defending. He was trying to close rear naked choke over his nose. He was just trying to do anything to get the finish. But for the person on bottom, they all already know that if they don't get tapped, they don't lose. See? It's gone past the point of, I can win this match now. It's just do not lose and do not give a point to the other team. So that there's again, with any new rule set that becomes a meta eventually, right now we're finding what that is.
Yeah.
I think the UK team in the no-gi played a very strategic game. We got a point and then we didn't get submitted in the other fights. In the gi squad, the European team was simply just essentially outclassed us. They were like that good that once they got to a good position, they were able to finish the chokes. And that's where you saw the points. But that's also where you see the excitement and the entertainment. Because as much as the European team are such a high level, I think people really enjoy the fact that the UK team were underdogs And when we got to good positions, I think people would have gone wild. So, like, for instance, when I passed Tommy's guard, I think that would have been a crazy moment of everybody going wild for me getting to a good position. The same with, I took Lucas back in my third match. And that was like the first position that the team had got where it's like a dominant position for us to attack.
Yeah.
So I think everybody would have gone crazy for that too. So sometimes it is good to have some mismatches and just to create that excitement.
Yeah, and do you think the only thing I found weird about maybe not the gi one, the no gi one, the margin was so small between the European, sorry, the God, who was it? UK and Ireland versus, was it Europe in the first one?
Yeah,
yeah. It was the margin was so small between the two teams winning. It was one submission. Do you think it's more important just to have an exciting match overall and quite a small margin, or do you think we'd better to have a bigger margin to be like, this person definitely won?
I don't know. I feel like a lot of the people that, based on how the tournament went, from whether or not it was 9-0 or 1-0, are the people that didn't actually watch the event. There are a lot of people that would have seen online or watched, like seen on Instagram or watched the BJJ Heroes type up of the event to base on their opinion, as opposed to actually watching the full 3 hours of the squads event to then say, oh, I'll give my opinion on the show. A lot of people are giving their opinion and saying, oh, there was only one submission. If you do a gi version of this, you're not going to get any submissions. And they're not watching the matches to then have an understanding of, actually, that was really fun, that was really exciting, the guys went for it. Yes, they didn't get a submission because the levels are close, but I really enjoyed watching the best guys in Europe go up against the best guys in the UK, and yay, the UK won. So I think on this one, people see the big margin, and it's like, oh, the European team whitewashed the UK. And then if you watch the fights back, then you realize there's actually a lot closer in certain matches where we fought really well, and if anything, got to some really good positions on some high-level guys.
Yeah. I'd be interested to see if they stick with the same rule sets for whatever ones they bring out next, or if they do change anything up. Because it was an exciting match. I kind of see what you mean. I think a lot of people have judged it purely on the submissions rather than on the show itself.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm a bit conscious of time because I know you've got to teach a class in like 7 minutes, right?
Yeah.
So, anything we want to cover before we wrap this one up?
No, I don't think so. I think the main thing was just talking about the squads.
Yeah.
I don't really have anything else that I'm doing at the moment.
No shows lined up? I mean, I guess there's not.
Yeah, nothing at all. I don't know when we'll be able to compete again.
Yeah, well, we're wondering. All right, Bradley. Well, look, mate, thanks for your time. It's really cool for you to take time out to go and do the interviews. I'll get in touch again when there's something else happening in the jiu-jitsu world, I guess.
Yeah, for sure, mate. No worries at all.
All right, cheers, Brad.
Okay.